Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and round one of the Subway Series is in the books. It's a split, and I want to talk about both games that were played yesterday because of the rain out on Monday night. And I want to do that on today's show, talk about the good, the bad, and the good. So I'm not sure when I'm going to get this video posted because I'm going to be actually driving into New York this morning for work. But I wanted to get a video recorded in the morning while yesterday's games were fresh in my mind. And I want to talk about the split of yesterday's Subway Series. The day started with the 105 start with Zack Wheeler on the mound for the Mets, and Wheeler looked good for the first 3 innings before the sky fell, and the Mets had a 4-1 lead, and it at no point did it feel comfortable. And interestingly, at no point in the second game did I feel comfortable with the lead either. So it isn't because of Wheeler, that's for sure. It's because of Yankee Stadium and because the Yankees have such a potent lineup. And throughout the day game yesterday, boy, that lineup really took Wheeler to school. They beat up Wheeler pretty good. He was ineffective from the 4th inning on. He was not helped by his defense. The Wheeler's never been the Mats type where something bad happens and he crumbles around it. But you can sort of trace back to that barehanded play he made where he alertly threw to second base and Rosario couldn't get his foot on the bag for the out, and that turned into a very costly error that the Yankees really took advantage of and kind of ran away with the game from there. It was a blowout victory for the Yankees. 12-5 was the final score. The GOAT of the game, of course, is Zack Wheeler. I mean, Wheeler has to be able to get it done. He couldn't, and the Mets lost. And, you sort of had this bummer feeling going into the nightcap. Like, geez, now our backs are against the wall. We got VargACE on the mound tonight, and it was a scary feeling. But when the game started, Game 2, Jason VargACE pitched another fantastic game. He's right now in the middle of the best stretch he's had with the Mets by a landslide. In last night's game, in the 3rd inning, his scoreless streak of 17 straight innings scoreless was broken when he allowed 3 runs to the Yankees. But those were the only 3 runs that he allowed in the game. So he pitches 6 innings, 3 runs. That's a quality start. He has the lowest ERA of the Mets pitching staff, and it's pretty phenomenal. I mean, it really, really is. Ever since the Revolutionary War reporter time traveled and talked to VargACE, it's like he's been a different player. So kudos to that guy. I might want to give a game ball to him for his hand in turning VargACE's season around. And we're at the point now where it's bizarro land. Jason VargACE is the best starter on the Mets staff at this moment, and I don't know that anybody would have predicted that at any point during the 2019 season. But that's where we are, and it is what it is. And as long as VargACE keeps doing what he's doing, every single conversation with about not going out and getting Gio Gonzalez and not going out and getting Dallas Keuchel, those conversations look validated. And of course, it's a long season, and we'll see what happens and if VargACE can keep this up. But just a few short years ago in the American League Central, he showed that he could. Pitched very well for the Royals, and perhaps he's on that stretch for the Mets right now, so that would be fantastic. Offensively, the game ball for Game 1 goes to Jeff McNeil, who gave the Mets a short lead with a 3-run home run. McNeil, coming off the IL, didn't miss a beat. He continues to rake. He remains the best hitter in the Mets lineup, and he gets himself a game ball for yesterday afternoon rather. Last night, the game ball, of course, is going to go to Pete Alonso. He hits his 22nd home run of the season. He is in second place in Major League Baseball for home runs. Polar Bear is continuing to have himself just a phenomenal season, and it's been fun to watch. And he puts the Mets up with a big home run in the first inning, and it was a lead the Mets would never turn away from. They would keep adding on. They ended up tacking on some runs, putting up some crooked numbers in a couple of different innings, and ended up winning the nightcap 10-4. VargACE ended up pitching 6 innings, as I said, and then Seth Lugo came out and pitched the 7th. Familia pitched the 8th, or I'm getting that backwards, sorry. Familia pitched the 7th, retired the first 2 batters, looked really, really good in doing so, and then Familia, he lets two runners on, and you start panicking a little bit, like, oh boy, here we go. But he ended up getting himself out of it, not allowing the Yankees to score. Seth Lugo followed with a dominant 8th inning, and I think he should have probably pitched the 9th, but he did not, obviously. Drew Gagnon did. First batter Gagnon faces is a home run to the large cranium himself, the brainiac, Brett Gardner. I'm sorry, but I can't look at him and not see like a comic book evil genius kind of brain character. That's Gardner's skull is just massive. I don't know how he wears a helmet. In fact, I think that's why the helmet bounced back and smashed him in the face, because it's just so pissed about trying to fit around his head every day. But Gagnon gave up that leadoff home run and nothing more. The Mets ended up winning, as I said, 10-4 in the nightcap. So all in all, a successful day for the Mets with the split. I think that's all you can ask for going into Yankee Stadium. I don't know whether the doubleheader played a part in the split, and whether or not the Mets would have been able to do so had they played traditionally one night after the next. But we don't have to worry about that, because the Mets did play the doubleheader and they did split with the Yanks. So they remained 1 game under 500 at this point, and off tonight, but welcome in the St. Louis Cardinals tomorrow for a 4-game set with Jacob deGrom on the mound on Thursday night. It'll be really nice to see the Mets take some of this, I don't know that it's momentum from this game, this Subway Series game, but take some of the good vibes from it at least and turn them into a series victory with the Cardinals and get back to 500 and hell, let's get greedy, get over 500. That would be terrific. If the Mets somehow are able to take 3 out of 4 from the Cardinals, who, by the way, right now are struggling to score runs. Gary mentioned it last night in the broadcast, either last night or yesterday afternoon during the broadcast. He mentioned they were on a bit of a tear and scored a whole bunch of runs over the course of a 3-game set with the Mets earlier this season, but haven't been able to put up that many runs in their last 17 games, something like that. I really probably botched that stat. I didn't look it up, but I remember Gary talking about how they've been sputtering offensively. And there's sort of 2 schools of thought on this as the Mets go. One school of thought is anytime an offensive team seems to be struggling, all they've got to do is come into Citi Field or play the Mets, and their woes are behind them. I'm hoping that's not the case with the Cardinals, but we'll see. The game is tomorrow night, and we'll see if the Cardinals' bats come to life in true fashion against the Mets. Or we'll see if perhaps the Mets pitching staff can keep the Cardinals at bay and keep them struggling to score runs, and the Mets can keep scoring runs themselves. That's obviously the ideal outcome. I am looking for a 3 out of 4 win series from the Mets this weekend. It might be a big ask, but that's what I'm asking for. So that'll wrap it up for today. I will not be back tomorrow because I won't have anything to talk about. At some point, I want to visit the AllStar balloting and the AllStar voting, and the travesty that is the fact that Jeff McNeil is like 18th right now amongst outfielders. And it sort of sucks that McNeil is pegged as an outfielder because, I mean, obviously outfield is a stacked set of 3 positions, and there are a lot of players in the outfield who put up bigger numbers than McNeil. But McNeil's really more of an infielder who's been playing the outfield because that's where the Mets have needed him. And I just wish that some versatility might come into play in the National League All-Star voting, and McNeil might get a utility vote, because a guy like McNeil, I'm sorry, absolutely belongs on the All-Star team. He is as pure a hitter as you're going to find in the National League right now. And he's not going to make the team, at least as far as the fan voting goes. The other bit of a surprise to me was that Pete Alonso is 5th amongst qualifying votes for first baseman, and I'd love to see that change as well. I'm not going to get too upset about it. It's still very early, and as we've seen in the past, some of these fan votes were a little bit skewed in the beginning. This year, of course, is different in that the votes get the players put into a lottery or into another set of votes that are handled by MLB or by the writers or by whomever, but it isn't the fans who are going to pick the starting lineups. So that's a good thing, because if you remember a couple years ago, the Kansas City Royals had, I think, every position. They were leading every position at one point during the voting, and that's just nuts. I just remember Omar Infante was the elected starting shortstop for a long period of time, and his batting average was sub 200, and it was just the fact that Royals fans were voting and voting and voting. So it's nice to see that MLB has changed the way the voting works, but again, I want to talk a little bit more about that when we get closer to the end date, and we'll see what things look like at that point in time. But Alonso and McNeil are the two clear all-star candidates for the Mets at this point, and I don't think that's going to change between now and the all-star game. So again, that'll wrap it up. Sorry I went on that little all-star break voting tangent there, but I'll be back on Friday to recap the first game of what will hopefully be a dominant outing by Jacob deGrom. So until then, thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.